Since OG Fortnite is returning permanently, today we're gonna look back at every POI from Chapter 1 and rank these from worst to best. This includes all of them, all the way from Season 1 up until Season X, and there were over 30 different POIs, so let's get straight into this ranking. So at number 35 on the list, I've gone with Flush Factory. This wasn't in the game for too long, only the first few seasons, and it wasn't the best POI. I do remember landing here a couple of times, but not too often. This one had to be low on the list. Number 34, Tomato Town. This is quite a famous POI, but very limited loot. Wouldn't be a good idea to land here in squads, only a few chests, and although it's got quite a nice layout and good luck, it definitely had to be low as well. Number 33, Pressure Plant. This one may be controversial, but I wasn't a huge fan of this POI. I just didn't really like the layout of the location. I feel like a lot of people did like it, but you either love it or hate it, and it wasn't for me. Although the concept was cool with the volcano, I wasn't a big fan of landing here. Number 32, Haunted Hills. This was added in Season 2, and I didn't really land here too often. It did have a few chests, but it was never a go-to spot for me. I'd only ever be here when rotating through the map or if the circle was here. Number 31, Tomato Temple. I do remember landing here when it first got added, around the time period of August 2018, and it feels kind of nostalgic. I remember it vividly when it first got added, and it did have decent loot and I did like the layout. Definitely preferred it to the original version. Number 30, Dusty Depot. This one again is quite iconic, but it wasn't the best. It didn't feature much loot at all. It was central on the map and you could always then rotate into other nearby POIs after landing here. Number 29, Junk Junction. I didn't mind this one at all. Landed here quite a lot and I did like it. Had plenty of chests, would then always rotate through Haunted Hills into Pleasant Park. Quite overhated in my opinion. Although there have been better POIs, this one wasn't bad at all. Number 28, Wailing Woods. The go-to spot for sky bases back in the day. Not much loot, but plenty of materials, that's for sure. You could easily land here and get 999 wood in a matter of minutes, and it was always quite good fun landing here trying to do sky bases, and I'm sure a lot of people will be doing this with the return of OG. Number 27, another POI that had very good materials, Moisty Mire. I actually really liked it. It was in the game from Season 1 to Season 4, before it got replaced by the desert biome. The only downside was that the swamp was very annoying to get through, as it would slow you down, so the only solution was to build over it. But the trees were huge, and you could get like 100 wood from each tree, and there was also a vending machine here during Season 3 and 4, so there was extra value for landing here, and although it was on the edge of the map, this was actually one of my favourite POIs during that time period when it was in the game. Number 26, Lonely Lodge. Used to land here quite a lot as well, plenty of materials and loot to collect, but not many people landed here, so there was never much action. Number 25, Frosty Flights. This wasn't my favourite. It had decent loot and it had the planes, so you could always rotate out easily if the storm wasn't with you, but I never really loved landing here. Number 24, Polar Peak. This one was a decent POI. Had a few buildings on the top of this huge snow mountain. Also featured the Infinity Blade, which you could obtain here, so it definitely was a go-to POI when that was in the game, but other than that, wasn't my favourite. Number 23, The Block. It's hard to rank this as it changed so much, but it did feature some good versions, with the Pyramid version being my favourite. And it does feel quite nostalgic. Used to land here all the time back in 2019. This was definitely my favourite version. Number 22, Anarchy Acres. A good farm location, but I didn't land here much, but it did feature the big main building with that iconic Nick A30 clip, and it did get replaced in Season 5 by Lazy Links. Number 21, Fatal Fields. I did like this POI. A decent farm area, and yes, I did prefer it to Anarchy. Maybe controversial, but that was just my preference. Used to land there way more. Number 20, Sunny Steps. Quite average, not bad but nothing great about it. Was added in Season 8 with the jungle biome, and it had a decent layout and loot, but there have been better POIs. Number 19, Happy Hamlet. This was added in Season 7, and this featured so much loot and made it a great place to land for duos and squads. I feel like this has become quite forgotten, but it was a very good POI. Number 18, Loot Lake. This is a classic. Quite annoying to get through the lake as you couldn't swim through it, so it would slow you down. But I liked landing here in the little factories on the edge. I remember when I first started playing in 2017, and this was definitely one of my go-to spots. Number 17, Tilted Town. It was a very unique POI, as it was a no-build zone, and it only featured Western themed weapons such as the 6-shooter. Wasn't my favourite, but I didn't hate it. Number 16, Shifty Shafts. Really liked this. Added in Season 2, and it was a great place to land at, and you could always then rotate into Tilted. Definitely one of my favourites around that time in Season 2 and 3. Number 15, Mega Mall. This was a good POI, but I did prefer the original version in Retail Row, but I have to admit that it was a good POI due to the variety of buildings and loot that it had. Number 14, Lucky Landing. Loved the theme of this POI, had such a great vibe, and I would always land here when playing duos when it was first added in Season 3. It was great. Number 13, Snobby Shores. This was probably my most landed location of Chapter 1. I would always land here when playing solos, loot up, and I'd always have a good loadout as well. And then I'd rotate through the soccer field into Tilted Towers, and that was my tactic every game when playing solos, mainly back in Season 3 and 4. Number 12, Risky Reels. This is such a classic. This was located towards the top right of the map, and I loved landing here. Only OGs remember the Search 7 chests as Risky Reels challenge. That was a nightmare to complete. Number 11, Neo Tilted. I personally wasn't a huge fan, but I can understand why people liked it. The futuristic theme was cool, and it had so much loot with the different buildings. Quite overwhelming with how big this POI was, but it was good. Number 10, Lazy Lagoon. This was added in Season 8, and this was great. Featured the huge pirate ship and buildings on the side, plenty of loot, and also featured cannons so you could rotate out easily. Number 9, Gotham City. Loved the Batman theme. The overall vibe and feeling of the location was unique with the dark lighting. Although it was a collab POI, that doesn't mean it wasn't amazing to land at. Number 8, Dusty Divot. I preferred this way over Dusty Depot. This had the huge crater, and it also featured hop rocks as well, and this was located at the centre of the map. Landing here on Season 4 release day hit different. Number 7, Greasy Grove. Used to love landing here back in 2018 and 2019, just a solid POI with good loot. There's nothing bad to say about it. Number 6, Pleasant Park. This is an iconic location, great layout, plenty of loot, and again, there's nothing really bad about this one. Number 5, Retail Row. Another classic POI, lots of loot, plenty of buildings, was a great place to land at in squads. Always would then rotate to Dusty, and this one was definitely one of my favourites. Number 4, Salty Springs. This is such an iconic POI, been in the game since Season 1, and it's simple, but in a good way. I'll never get bored of landing here. Number 3, now we're getting to the really good ones, Lazy Links. Loved the golf theme, and although it was near the edge of the map, I loved landing here. It was added in Season 5, and you could also get in an ATK and then rotate towards Dusty, as it did have those golf carts, so it was a great place to go. Definitely one of the best in my opinion. Number 2, Paradise Palms. Loved the desert biome, and this was the core of that area. A huge POI with so much loot and an amazing theme. This one is a classic. And at number 1, it is of course Tilted Towers. No explanation needed for this, such an iconic POI that was added in Season 2, definitely the best in my opinion. But which Chapter 1 POI is your favourite? Let me know in the comments below. And for now, there's a load more videos on screen here. Make sure to click another one to keep on watching, and I'll see you over there.